Exceptional work this quarter, Grant. Cheers to you. Thank you. I couldn't have done it without the team. Another round for the rising star?
I'm sorry, Sofia.
Dad, why are you out there? Please come home.
I didn't want you to worry.
Thank you, my dear.
It's nothing, Papa. Here, drink this.
Just what I needed.
You did good tonight.
For 18 years, I cleaned the offices of men who earned more before lunch than I brought home in a month. On the coldest Thursday of November, my supervisor made me clock out at 11:45 p.m., handed me a fresh mop head, and told me the executive floor still looked embarrassing. Through the lobby glass, I could already see the last bus I needed glowing at the curb in the rain. "Mr. Mercer," I said, holding my transit card so tightly its edge pressed into my palm. "I need that bus to get home." Grant Mercer glanced at the silver watch under his cuff, then at the wine stains across the marble floor behind me. "Then I suggest you work quickly, Mateo." Upstairs, the celebration had ended only minutes earlier. The company had won another luxury property contract, and the people who signed it had left behind champagne flutes, crushed cocktail napkins, and a gold banner stretched across the reception wall. "People are our greatest investment." I bent down beneath those words and scrubbed a dark red spill from the white stone. My knees ached inside my work trousers. My left shoe had been leaking since the first snow of the season, and every time I stepped backward, cold water pressed through my sock. At 12:18, I emptied the last bin. At 12:26, I polished fingerprints from the boardroom doors. At 12:34, Grant walked past me in his wool coat, carrying an umbrella with a wooden handle. "You can finish the lobby on your way out," he said. "But I already clocked out," I answered. He paused just long enough to make me feel foolish for speaking. "Be grateful you still have regular hours at your age." By the time I pushed through the revolving door, the bus was already moving. Its red taillights blurred through the rain, then disappeared between the towers on Bay Street. I did not run after it. At 58, a man knows when something is already gone. The next connection would cost money I had promised myself I would not spend. Rent was due in 4 days. My hydro bill had a red notice across the top. I turned back toward the lobby, hoping to stand inside until the rain softened. Grant was on the other side of the glass. He saw me. He reached down and locked the door. "This building is for clients, Mateo," he called through the glass. "Not people like you." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my daughter, Sofia. "Are you home already, Dad?" I stood beneath the cold blue lights of the tower, rain slipping from my hair into my collar, and typed the same lie I had been sending her for months. "Yes, Anik. Just making tea." Then, reflected in the black glass behind Grant, I noticed the lobby clock still glowing above my wet shoulder. 12:37 a.m. And somewhere inside that shining building, cameras were still taking pictures. The rain had hardened into sleet by the time I reached Scarborough. I had taken 2 buses and walked the last 6 blocks because the overnight connection cost more than I could justify. My trousers clung cold against my knees. Inside my basement apartment, the air smelled faintly of damp concrete and the ginger tea Marisol used to make whenever winter settled into my bones. I locked the door quietly, as though there were still someone sleeping in the next room. There was not. Her chair remained beside the narrow kitchen table, a blue wool scarf folded over its back exactly where I had left it after the hospital returned her belongings 3 years earlier. I never sat there. Some absences become rooms of their own. I removed my wet shoes and placed folded paper towels inside them, hoping they would dry before my next shift. When I switched on the kitchen light, 3 envelopes waited beneath a chipped ceramic bowl. Rent reminder. Credit card payment. Toronto Hydro. I opened the hydro notice first because I already knew what the others would say. The red line across the top gave me 10 days before further action. I read the amount twice, then set it face down beside the photograph of Sofia at her college graduation, smiling in a white dress while I stood behind her in the only suit I owned. That day, she had hugged me and whispered, "You made this possible, Dad." I had believed her. I still wanted to. My stomach tightened, reminding me that the sandwich in my lunch bag was still untouched. I had planned to eat it after work, but hunger felt wasteful when there were bills on the table. I filled the kettle, then opened my latest pay statement from Crown Line. 40 hours. Exactly 40. No sign of the extra cleaning after receptions. No sign of the nights I had polished glass walls while the last bus disappeared without me. I found a pencil in the drawer and turned the envelope over. November 6th, left building 12:21 in the morning. November 13th, 12:29. Tonight, November 20th, 12:37. Missed bus. Additional fare. Wet shoes. Locked outside. My hand stopped on those last two words. I had spent half my life in Canada believing endurance was a kind of dignity. That if I kept my head down, paid what I owed, and asked for little, the country would eventually make room for me. The kettle clicked off. Before I could pour the water, my phone lit up with a work email from Grant Mercer. Attendance review meeting. Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning. Reason: repeated failure to complete assigned duties within scheduled hours. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. They had taken the hours from my pay. Now they were preparing to make those missing hours my fault. At 8:47 on Friday morning, I stepped into Argent Square wearing the same clean shirt I had worn to Sofia's graduation. It still fit across my shoulders, but the collar had softened with age. The lobby looked different in daylight. Men in tailored coats crossed the marble floor without noticing the shine beneath their shoes. A woman carrying a coffee cup walked directly over the place where I had scrubbed wine from the stone less than 9 hours earlier. On the 22nd floor, Grant Mercer sat behind a glass desk with a woman from Human Resources beside him. Her name was Melissa Ward. She smiled once, politely, then placed a printed document between us. My name appeared at the top. Below it were 3 dates, including the night before. Failure to complete assigned duties within scheduled shift. Mateo, Grant said, folding his hands, we value your years of service. But client expectations have changed. The executive floors must be completed before you leave. I looked at the dates. I completed them after my shift. Melissa lowered her eyes to the paper. Grant did not. Our records show that you clocked out at 11:45 each evening. Because you told me to. The room became very quiet. Outside the glass wall, people walked past carrying laptops and bright conversations, as though nothing important could ever happen in a room where the carpet was this clean. Grant leaned back. Be careful with accusations. You were paid for your scheduled work. If you chose to remain longer because you worked slowly, that is not a company decision. I felt my face grow warm, not with anger, but with the old shame of a man whose accent makes every truth sound as though he is asking permission to say it. Melissa slid a pen toward me. This is a performance acknowledgement. Signing does not mean termination. It simply confirms that expectations were explained. I read the last sentence twice. Further incidents may result in reduction of hours or dismissal. Reduced hours meant rent unpaid. Dismissal meant everything else. I signed. Grant smiled as though he had given me mercy. That night, in the supply room, Elena saw the folded warning in my pocket. She did not ask what it was. She only pulled a matching paper from inside her cleaning cart. Rafik stood beside her, staring at the floor. He gave me one last month, he said, after I asked about overtime. Before I could answer, Amara appeared in the doorway, her security badge catching the fluorescent light. She held a small notebook against her chest. Mateo, she said quietly, last night was not the first time I saw you leave after midnight. I have been writing down every time that door opened. Amara did not open the notebook in the supply room. She glanced once toward the hallway camera, then slipped it beneath a stack of disposable gloves in my cart. Read it somewhere private, she said, and do not leave it here. Her voice was calm, but her hands were not. For the rest of the shift, I carried that notebook beside bottles of glass cleaner and folded cloths, afraid of it in the same way a man is afraid of finally hearing the truth he has spent years surviving without. At 12 minutes past midnight, Grant passed the executive lounge and ordered me to remove trays left from a private client dinner. I looked at the clock, then at my cart. My scheduled hours are finished. He stopped. His expression did not change. Are you refusing assigned work the same day you signed a performance warning? Elena was wiping a table nearby. Rafik was replacing garbage liners. Neither looked up, but the silence between us had changed. It was no longer empty. It was listening. I lowered my eyes and lifted the first tray. Grant walked away satisfied. At 12:41, I left through the service entrance instead of the lobby. Amara met me beside the security desk and pressed a paper cup of tea into my hands. You missed it again, she said. Through the wet glass, the bus shelter stood empty beneath a flickering advertisement. Yes, I said. Again. On the long ride home, I opened her notebook beneath the dim light above my seat. Page after page held dates, door numbers, and times written in neat blue ink. October 3rd, Mateo de la Cruz exited East Lobby at 12:22 in the morning. October 10th, 12:34. October 17th, 12:46. Elena Ruiz, 12:39. Rafiq Ahmed, 12:42. Beside 3 dates, Amara had added the same note, supervisor present. I counted 14 nights with my name on them. 14 nights already erased from my pay statements. 14 nights I had told Sofia I was home. When I reached my apartment, there was a voicemail from her. She had found a place offering discounted winter boots and wanted to buy me a pair before the snow got worse. I sat at the kitchen table with Marisol's empty chair across from me and could not call back. My daughter was saving money to protect my feet while I was hiding the reason they were always wet. I opened the hydro notice, the rent reminder, my pay statements, and Amara's notebook. Then I placed the performance warning in the center of the table. At the bottom, beneath my signature, was a line I had not noticed in Grant's office. Employee confirms all reported work hours are accurate. I stared at my own handwriting until the kettle began to whistle. Grant had not only stolen my time, he had made me sign my name beneath his lie. By Monday evening, the executive floor had been transformed for the gala. Tall arrangements of white flowers stood beneath suspended lights. Gold lettering stretched across the glass reception wall. People are our greatest investment. I read those words while pushing my cart past crates of imported sparkling wine and trays of food covered in silver lids. My lunch sat untouched in a paper bag under the sink. Grant intercepted us near the service corridor before the guests arrived. He handed Elena, Rafiq, and me revised task sheets, each one ending at 11:45 in the evening. This account is important, he said. Tonight has to be flawless. Elena glanced at the ballroom. There will be cleanup after 11:45. Grant adjusted his cuff. Then work efficiently. No one answered. At 9 o'clock, the tower filled with people whose winter coats were collected by attendants and whose names appeared in large letters on screens. From behind the service door, I watched Grant accept a glass trophy on behalf of Crownline. His photograph was taken beneath the words about investing in people. He looked proud. I wondered whether a man could stand beneath a lie long enough to begin believing it was light. At 11:45, Grant placed a tablet on a catering table and waited while we clocked out. Rafiq pressed his thumb to the screen first. Elena went next. When my name disappeared from the active shift list, Grant gave a small approving nod and pointed toward the ballroom. Now make it look as if no one was ever here. The guests did not leave quickly. They remained in small circles, laughing, posing for photographs, raising glasses toward the city lights. I moved around them quietly, gathering plates and wiping spills from the marble while my transit schedule counted down inside my coat pocket. At 12:28, a photographer called Grant and 2 executives toward the glass wall for one final picture. I was kneeling less than 6 meters behind them, cleaning a wide stain from the floor beneath the gold banner. The camera flashed. On the wall above my reflection, the digital clock read 12:37. Grant turned after the picture and saw me looking at it. His smile vanished for half a second. Finish the lobby, he said. Outside, the rain had become wet snow. I reached the front doors just in time to watch my bus pull away, its windows glowing warm against the empty street. My fare balance was too low for another route. I stood beneath the overhang, calculating how far I could walk before the cold entered my leaking shoe. Then Amara rushed from the security desk, her face pale. Mateo, come inside. She held up her phone. On the company gala page, the photograph had already been posted. Grant was smiling in the foreground. Behind him, reflected in the glass, I was on my knees beneath the clock. And under the image, Crownline had written, "Proud to honor every worker who made tonight possible." Amara took 3 screenshots before the company page disappeared. By the time I reached home near 2 in the morning, the photograph had been removed, replaced by a shorter post thanking clients for attending. In the deleted image, Grant had been smiling beneath warm lights while my reflection remained on the floor behind him, framed by the glowing numbers on the lobby clock. 12:37 in the morning. 15 minutes after I should have been home. 52 minutes after Crownline claimed I had stopped working. I saved the photographs to my old phone, then copied the times onto the back of another pay envelope. My hands were still cold when I set the pencil down. For the first time, I had something stronger than memory. At 9:16 the next morning, Grant called. His voice was soft enough to sound concerned. Mateo, you need to come to the office immediately. A guest from last night has reported a missing bracelet. My mouth went dry. I did not take anything. No one has accused you yet, he said. Yet. The word followed me through the slush all the way downtown. In the glass meeting room, Grant sat beside Melissa from Human Resources. On the table was a sealed envelope and a printed incident form. He told me the bracelet had last been seen near the reception area, the same area I had cleaned after the gala. He mentioned my recent performance warning. He mentioned that I had been frustrated about my hours. He did not mention the photograph. I have worked in this building for 18 years, I said. I have emptied offices with watches on desks and wallets beside computers. I have never taken a thing. Melissa looked uncomfortable. Grant only folded his hands. Then you should understand why cooperation matters. Effective today, you are suspended without pay while we review the situation. I heard the words, but my mind had already reached my kitchen table. Rent reminder. Hydro notice. Sofia asking about winter boots. Grant pushed the envelope toward me. Inside was my access card, already canceled, and a form stating I was not permitted to enter the building without authorization. The company had erased my hours, taken my key, and placed suspicion where my name used to be. Outside, I sat beneath the bus shelter in the gray morning light, still holding the envelope. My phone began ringing. Sofia. I meant to let it stop, but my wet thumb touched the screen. Her face appeared, smiling at first, then slowly changing as she saw the tower behind me and the Crown Line uniform folded in my lap. Dad, she said, why are you not at home? I tried to answer, but after months of lying gently, the truth had become too heavy to lift. Sofia found me 23 minutes later, sitting beneath the bus shelter with the suspension envelope folded inside my coat. She did not ask why I had hidden everything from her. Not there. She simply took my lunch bag from my hand and drove me to Scarborough in silence, her windshield wipers moving back and forth like they were trying to clear more than rain. When she entered my basement apartment, she stopped beside the kitchen table. The hydro notice was face down, but the red edge still showed. My pay envelopes were stacked beside Marisol's empty chair. Amara's notebook lay beneath the warning I had signed. Sofia picked up the top envelope and turned it over. November 20th. 12:37 in the morning. Missed bus. Locked outside. She read the next one, then the next. Her breathing changed before her voice did. How long? She asked. I removed my damp coat and hung it by the door. Long enough. That is not an answer. I looked at her then. Her face had Marisol's strength in it, the same quiet anger that appeared only when someone she loved had been treated unfairly. I did not bring you here so you could spend your life worrying about my rent, I said. I brought you here so you could have a life beyond mine. Sofia held the envelopes against her chest. You are my life too, Dad. The words left no place for my pride to hide. My phone rang before I could speak. It was Amara. She did not say hello. The bracelet was found, she whispered. A guest left it in the private coat room. Security recorded the recovery this morning. I gripped the counter. Does Grant know? He signed the incident update himself. He knew before he suspended you. Sofia heard enough from my face. She opened my old phone and found the gala photographs Amara had saved. The first showed Grant receiving his award. The second showed the gold banner. The third made Sofia go completely still. She enlarged the glass wall behind Grant until my reflection filled the screen. An older man on his knees with a cloth in his hand, my uniform visible, the digital clock shining above me. 12:37. Dad, she said, this photograph proves you were working. I wanted to feel relief. Instead, I felt tired. It proves I was there. No, she answered, pulling the pay statement from the table. This says you were not. A notification appeared on her phone. Amara had sent a document from the security system, 14 entry and exit logs, matching 14 unpaid nights. Beneath them was a final message. Elena and Rafik are ready to speak. Sofia set the phone beside my cold kettle and reached for her coat. Where are we going? I asked. She looked at the canceled access card in my hand. Back to the building that taught you to think you were invisible. Sofia drove downtown with both hands tight on the steering wheel, while the folder on my lap grew heavier with every kilometer. Inside it were my pay statements, Amara's handwritten records, the photograph from the gala, and the suspension form Grant had prepared before allowing the truth about the bracelet to reach me. I had spent 18 years entering Argent Square through a service door. That afternoon, my daughter led me through the front lobby. The marble floor reflected the winter light. For once, I did not look down to see whether it was clean. Grant met us in a glass conference room with Melissa Ward and a man from Argent Square Management named Peter Langford. Grant smiled when he saw me, but the smile faltered when Sofia placed the folder on the table. "Mr. de la Cruz is suspended," he said. "This meeting was not authorized." Sofia pulled out the recovered bracelet report. "Neither was suspending my father after you already knew the bracelet had been found." Melissa turned sharply toward Grant. He reached for the report, but Sofia placed her hand over it. "There is more." She laid the gala photograph beside my pay statement. In one document, I had stopped working at 11:45. In the other, I was reflected in the lobby glass at 12:37, on my knees beneath their gold words about valuing people. Peter Langford removed his glasses and leaned closer. Grant's voice changed. "A photograph does not establish payroll liability." Mateo often struggled to finish tasks efficiently. I heard the old words again. Slow, grateful, replaceable. They had always worked because I had always carried them home alone. This time, I opened Amara's records and placed 14 exit times in front of him. "Elena Ruiz and Rafiq Ahmed have the same records," Sofia said. "They are prepared to provide statements." Grant looked at me as though I had betrayed an agreement I had never chosen. "After everything Crown Line has given you, this is how you respond." I folded my hands to stop them from shaking. "You gave me work," I said. "I gave you 18 years. No one interrupted. You took the hours I could have spent with my wife before she was gone. You took dinners I told my daughter I had already eaten. You made me stand in the rain outside a building I had kept clean. Then you used a missing bracelet to silence me after you knew I was innocent." Melissa lowered her eyes. Peter gathered the documents into a single stack. Grant stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous." Peter did not raise his voice. "Sit down, Mr. Mercer. Your access to this contract is suspended effective immediately." Through the conference room glass, I saw Amara standing near the security desk, Elena beside her, Rafiq holding his winter cap in both hands. For the first time in 18 years, the people who cleaned the building were no longer hidden behind its reflection. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived from Crown Line in an envelope too expensive for the apology inside it. Grant Mercer had been removed from the Argent Square account, while the company reviewed the unpaid hours of every night worker under his supervision. My suspension had been withdrawn. The accusation about the bracelet had been deleted from my file. Attached was a payment for the hours they could no longer pretend I had not worked. I placed the check on the kitchen table beside the hydro bill and the rent notice. It was enough to keep the lights on, enough to clear what I owed, enough to buy new winter boots without Sofia finding a sale first. It was not enough to return the nights I had spent outside in the rain, or the evenings I could have sat beside Marisol while she was still here. Some things cannot be repaid because they were never measured in dollars. Argent Square offered me my old position under a new supervisor. I thanked them and declined. I had spent too many years polishing a floor for people who only noticed me when I appeared in the evidence against them. Amara helped me apply for an evening custodial position at a community hospital in Scarborough. The pay was modest, the hallways smelled of disinfectant and coffee, and on my first shift a supervisor showed me where to record every minute I worked. "Your time matters here, Mr. de la Cruz," she said. I had to turn away for a moment before answering. That Friday, I finished at 11:15 in the evening. Outside, wet snow drifted through the streetlights, settling along the curb in thin silver lines. I walked toward the bus shelter wearing new black boots, still stiff around my ankles. Sofia was already there, holding 2 paper cups of hot tea and Marisol's blue scarf folded over her arm. "You left this on the chair for too long," she said, wrapping it carefully around my neck. I smiled, though my eyes had begun to sting. When the bus arrived, its doors opened with a familiar sigh. I paused before stepping aboard and looked back at the rain-darkened city, at all the windows still burning above people cleaning, lifting, driving, waiting, trying to build a life no one else could see. My dream had not become the life I once promised my wife it would be. It had cracks in it now. It had grief, overdue bills, and years of silence I wished I could take back. But as Sofia sat beside me and handed me the warm cup, I understood that a broken dream could still carry someone home. The bus moved forward through the snow. For the first time in a long while, I was not counting what I had lost. I was watching for my stop and believing I would reach it.